The bus hisses as it kneels to the curb. I step down with a tote bag and a knot for a heart. Chicago breathes cold into my face, late October cold that makes your teeth ache. The terminal is a hive of wheels and curses and coffee steam. I don't look at any of it. I keep my ticket clenched like a prayer and walk. 3 blocks from the gated community, the sky decides it's already dusk. Sodium lamps blink alive and the wind herds leaves into little brown flurries around my ankles. I've walked this route a dozen times to see my son and my grandson. Today, it feels like a corridor to somewhere you don't come back from. Daniel's townhouse sits in its neat row like a piano key, the same softwood door, the same brass numbers. I knock with the polite knuckle first, then harder. Daniel? My voice scatters on the street. Matthew? No answer. No footsteps. The cul-de-sac is quiet enough to hear a flag rope whip the pole. I try the knob. As habit, as superstition, as nonsense. And the door gives with a small, treacherous click. Unlocked. Daniel does not leave doors unlocked. He checks them twice. 3 times when Matthew sleeps over. Hello? The word barely leaves my lips before the smell hits me. Not rot, not bleach. A sour damp, something stale and overboiled underneath. The living room tilts wrong, the sofa shoved at an angle as if a hip slammed it aside. A coffee mug shattered into constellations across the rug. A dark halo of dried spill bleeding into the fibers. I lift my skirt and step, picking my way like the floor could lie about where it is. The kitchen hums with the open mouth of the refrigerator. A water cooler jug lies toppled on its shoulder, a fat dead fish. Empty bottles skate when my shoe nudges them. Tink, roll, stop. Caps are nowhere. The sink drips out an irregular heartbeat. I shut the fridge, shut the drip, but the house keeps being noisy in a way that isn't sound. Daniel? I hate the way his name comes out, like a plea I'm afraid to make. I climb the stairs with my hand on the rail, feeling each varnished groove like braille. The air turns thinner on the second floor, the silence more adhesive. His office. Chair pushed back, computer asleep, a sweater slung over the back like a body that forgot itself. Bedroom. Bed made too neatly, pillows squared, no indentation. The polite impersonation of sleep. I stand in the doorway until the quiet presses fingerprints into my ribs. Matthew's room saves its punch for last. Lego cities occupy continents on the floor. A teddy bear with one lazy eye slumps against a shelf. Crayon suns radiate from white printer paper, pinned crookedly to cork. It looks like a boy left quickly, but thought he'd be right back. That thought makes me dizzy. Matthew? The question trembles. I hear it then. A thin scrape. Plastic on wood. Not a mouse. Not that sound. Bottle against floorboard once. Then again, gently, as if a tide moved it. My fingers close around the edge of his desk to keep my knees from leaving me. Sweetheart? The bed is a fortress of blankets, the dust ruffle hiding its underworld. I lower myself and the wood pops softly in protest. I lean, but my spine refuses to bend further, as if my body knows what my mind refuses. I step backward and the room shrinks. Panic cracks open like an egg. I am running before I know I've turned, clattering down the stairs, the front door yawning when I hurl it wide, air burning my lungs. The phone in my trembling hand is suddenly made of glass and oil. I input the emergency number wrong. Again. The third time, it rings. My son is missing, I say, and the words are too big to fit through my throat. 2 weeks. There's a noise. Under my grandson's bed. Please, please come. The operator's voice is a metronome. Address, stay outside, officers en route. I nod to nothing and say yes to air. The cul-de-sac receives me like a stage set. A trimmed hedge, a trash can with its lid askew, the sky now purple and bruised. And then, red and blue, siren song. The patrol car noses up to the curb and 2 uniforms step out, with the alert, careful faces of people walking into someone else's worst day. Inside, my house of cards waits. Upstairs, I tell them, pointing with the finger that won't point straight. Their boots are respectful on the steps, heavy, measured. In Matthew's doorway, the young one, a long shadow of a man with a trimmed beard, kneels. His partner posts by the door, hand resting near his holster, eyes taking snapshots of everything. "Is anyone under there?" the young one asks, voice level, voice you could sip like water. There's a pause so quiet it has shape. Then, the whisper of plastic again. They lift the bed as if it might spook, swift and smooth. The dust ruffles sighs and falls back. And there he is. Matthew is a bundle of boy where no boy should be, knees folded to his chest, arms wrapped around an empty bottle like it's an oxygen tank. His hair is a map of sweat, sticking in damp licks to his forehead. His t-shirt has become a second skin, gray with grime. He stares past and through us with pupils too big for the light. That vacant gaze reaches out and taps me on the sternum. "Matthew," I say, and the syllables are a prayer, a question, a memory. I drop to my knees so fast my bones bark. I don't touch him. I'm afraid my hands might shatter him. The young officer says something into his radio. The older one crouches low, palms open, slow like tide. "Hey, buddy," he murmurs. "It's okay. We're here to help." Matthew doesn't blink. He presses the bottle to his rib cage. I see the small jump of his swallow. The bottle crinkles. That's the only sound he makes. The world narrows until it is the rectangle of air between my grandson's face and mine. There are small salt lines on his cheeks, like evaporated rain. He smells like a room with the windows sealed. "Ambulance is 2 minutes out," the officer says. He speaks to me without taking his eyes off the boy. "Ma'am, has anyone else been here today?" "No." The truth tastes like failure. "Have you heard from your son recently?" I shake my head. The number of days is a cliff I can't look over. He nods once, not a judgment, a ledger entry. Siren wail approaches from far and then near, turns into a stutter and a stop outside the door. The paramedics arrive as if the house made them. A woman with hair braided tight, a man with the weary hands of someone who's lifted too many gurneys up too many staircases. "Hey there," the braid says to Matthew, her voice wrapped in gauze. She slides a blanket around his shoulders without demanding his arms. He flinches at the touch, then stills. She doesn't force the bottle from his hands. She lets him keep that one thing. "Vitals," the other mutters, cuff and pulse ox appearing like conjurer's props. Numbers speak to them in beeps and little bars, and their faces rearrange into professional concern. "Dehydrated," the braid says softly. "Likely hypoglycemic. Shock." Shock, I repeat, because naming a monster sometimes makes it smaller. It doesn't help. They coax him out, and he unfolds like someone else's origami, stiff, angular, a boy who forgot how to be a boy. He lets them lead him, eyes glassing every corner but never landing. When he passes me, something in me can't bear the distance. I reach out. My fingers find his wrist, skin papery and warm. "Grandma's here," I whisper. He doesn't look at me. He doesn't pull away either. The tiny permission feels like a door left on the latch. Downstairs, the living room is an ugly diorama. The mug shards, the tilted sofa, a stain you can't mop out of memory. The stretcher squeaks. The front door opens on the cold, and the night leans in to hear. We move as one organism. Officers, medics, me, down the path. Neighbors' windows glowing with the square curiosity of watching. In the ambulance, they let me sit, knees pressed together, hands wrong in my lap. Matthew lies on the cot, eyelashes resting against cheeks, eyes open but uninhabited. The paramedic tapes the IV to his small arm the way a mother might fix a Band-Aid, careful, without apology. The siren swallows our words, so I make my voice small and private. "You're safe," I tell him. "You're coming with me." My voice cracks on the last word and splinters into the noise. The ambulance lurches forward, and the city becomes a speed of lights we don't have to stop for. Every red we blow feels like cutting another string before something falls. The officer with the trimmed beard sits across from me, radio buzzing at his shoulder, eyes on Matthew, then on me. He doesn't say, "We'll find your son." He doesn't say anything you can't promise. He offers a nod that admits how big the dark is.
In the rhythm of the siren, I hear the house still talking, the drip in the sink, the bottle skitter, the soft thud of a body hitting a table corner, because memory does not wait its turn. My hands learn to shake in a new way. At the hospital bay, white light pounces. The doors burst open to swallow my grandson. "Ma'am, you can follow us to triage," someone says. And I do because I don't remember how to do anything else. We rush down a corridor that smells like antiseptic and old loss. They pivot him into a small curtained square, and their hands move in a choreography that has saved strangers' children so often it has its own religion. I stand at the curtain edge and hold the plastic of it like a rosary. On the monitor, numbers become steadier, tiny hills evening out. The braid paramedic squeezes my shoulder before she disappears. She says, "You did the right thing." I want to ask her which part that was, so I can repeat it for the rest of my life. A nurse with soft shoes and tired kindness asks for his name. "Matthew," I say, and it's the first word that feels like a foothold. "Last name?" she asks. I give it. I give mine. She writes them down, transforming us into lines that someone will use to call someone else. When she's gone, I finally step inside the curtain. Matthew looks up at the square ceiling tiles, as if they have something to say. His hand still grips the empty bottle. I ease it aside and put my palm there instead. For a second, his fingers tense, fight or flight in miniature. Then they relax under mine, the way a bird might realize the hand is not a cage, but a shelter. "Grandma's here," I tell him again, because maybe it will be true if I build it into the room one sentence at a time. His eyes shift, just slightly, and find me. Not all the way, not for long, but enough to place me in the world with him. It is the smallest movement, and it splits me open. Somewhere a door opens, heavy and official. 2 officers step in, not the ones from the house. These men have notebooks and the kind of faces that live on coffee. They look at Matthew. They look at me. One clears his throat. "Mrs." And when he says my name, the room tilts toward the future. "Can you tell us," he asks gently, "when you last spoke to your son?"
The detective's pen hovered. His partner leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching me like a surgeon, deciding where to cut. 2 weeks, I said. My own voice surprised me. Dry, brittle, like old paper tearing. 2 weeks since I last heard Daniel. They scribbled, asked when I called, how many times, what I wrote, what I imagined. Each answer felt like opening a vein in public. Behind the curtain, Matthew shifted in the bed. The blanket slipped from his shoulder, and his small chest rose too quickly, too shallow. The monitor beeped in nervous agreement. I wanted to push the detectives out and scream that my grandson's heartbeat was louder than their questions. But I didn't. I clutched my shawl and stayed. "We'll need a full statement," the younger one said, "and we'll be sending forensics back to the house. We'll treat it as a missing person case. For now." For now. The words landed with a cold finality, like a nail tapped into wood. That night, I stayed beside Matthew. Hospital light never truly dims. It only hums softer. He twitched in his sleep, lips moving, silent syllables spilling out. I bent close. He was calling for his father without sound. Each time, I pressed the damp towel to his forehead and whispered, "Grandma's here. Grandma's here." At 3 a.m, he jerked awake, eyes wide, fists clutching his bottle. His breath came in shallow bursts, as if drowning in a dream. I gathered him into my lap, rocking him like I had rocked his father 30 years ago. He didn't cry. He didn't speak, just trembled. By dawn, I felt hollowed, like the night had carved me out and left only shell. The nurse urged me to go home, but I couldn't. "If he opens his eyes, I need him to see me," I said. She didn't argue. She just touched my shoulder. 2 days bled together. Doctors came and went, their voices a fog of dehydration, malnutrition, trauma. Psychologists tried coaxing Matthew. He clung to his teddy bear, mute. Then the call came. The detective's voice was stripped of everything but gravity. "Mrs. Helen, we re-examined Daniel's house with luminol. We found blood in the living room, a large amount." The words didn't land all at once.
First came the sound, tinny through the receiver, then the meaning, then the absence of air in my lungs. My knees gave, and I sat hard in the chair beside Matthew's bed. Blood, I repeated. Yes, ma'am. We can't confirm yet, but it's substantial. We're treating this as a homicide investigation now. The washcloth slipped from my hand. My fingers couldn't close. My son's name, my son's face, my son's smile when he brought me corn cake last month, they all collapsed under one word: homicide. Before I could answer, a tug on my sleeve. Matthew. His red, tear-filled eyes pierced straight through me. His lips parted.
And for the first time since I found him, sound clawed out of his throat. Dad, he's dead. The scream that followed shook the sterile hospital room apart. A child's grief made weapon. Nurses rushed in, doctors too, but I was already wrapping him, holding him so tightly he could drown in my ribs if he wanted. His tears soaked my blouse, hot against my skin. No, sweetheart, no, I whispered, but even I didn't believe it. Later, when the sedative finally calmed him, the detectives arrived again. They pulled up chairs, their notebooks open like graves waiting to be filled. The young one leaned close to Matthew. "Buddy," he said, voice softened, "can you tell us what happened that night?" Matthew's shoulders trembled. He clutched his bear so hard its seams threatened to split. I stroked his hair. "It's okay, Matthew. Just tell us. I'm right here." A long silence, then a nod. His small voice scraped out, fragile, broken. "It was raining. Really hard." The room froze. Every syllable was a crack in the dam. "I was building Legos. Dad said my tower was the prettiest. Then the doorbell rang, over and over." He paused, eyes distant, as though the memory itself had teeth. Dad looked through the peephole. His face, he was scared. I'd never seen him like that. He turned to me and whispered, "Matthew, get under the bed. Don't come out until I call you. Promise me." Tears burned my eyes. My son had known. He had shielded his boy with seconds to spare. Matthew's hand shook as he gripped the bear. She came in with a tall man, his arms crossed. His face it was cold. Jessica. The name gripped through me like barbed wire. My ex-daughter-in-law, Matthew's mother. She asked, "Where's Matthew?" Dad told her I was with Grandma for winter break. He lied. Then they shouted. Mom said something about money. Dad said no. Then the tall man, he pushed Dad twice. The second time, his small shoulders collapsed. He buried his face into me and sobbed. Dad hit his head on the table. There was red water everywhere. He didn't move. The detectives wrote furiously, but the sound of the pen scratching paper felt obscene in the presence of a child breaking himself open. I held Matthew, my tears soaking his hair. The image of Daniel, my Daniel, falling, bleeding, lifeless, seared itself into my skull. The young detective looked at me, jaw tight. "Mrs. Helen, this is a homicide." My breath came, sharp, jagged. "Are you going to find her?" He nodded, grim. "We'll do everything possible. Jessica won't get away." I kissed Matthew's temple, whispering promises into the hollow of his sobs, promises of safety, promises of justice. But inside, rage ignited, hot, pure, and merciless. "Daniel, I swear to you, I will see her fall." Morning shows up mean and colorless, the kind that peels heat off your bones. Matthew is asleep, finally, his lashes stuck together, the little bear trapped in the crook of his arm. I tuck the blanket higher and step into the hallway where coffee breath and bleach make a truce. The detective is waiting by the vending machine, tie loosened, eyes that haven't slept. He nods toward an empty family room with soft chairs and a window that looks like a painted sky. "We found something," he says, laying out photos like a dealer who hates his own cards. Blue-tinted frames from a neighbor's camera, a dark pickup idling under a street lamp, a long tarped shape in the bed, the outline of Daniel's townhouse door a rectangle of black. "The night of the storm," he adds. "In and out, We can't read the plates, but the model matches trucks used by a local loan outfit, not banks, men who collect with their hands. My mouth dries. Jessica, I say, and the name tastes metallic. She didn't come alone. He watches my face. You know her history. I see the nights like split film. Daniel selling his car, my savings emptied into hands that didn't say thank you, the way Jessica's laugh curdled into something that bit. Debt, I say. She makes it and then gets swallowed by it. He nods once. We're canvassing her last address. He checks the clock, then me. We'd like you to come to the house, if you can. I look back down the hall toward Matthew's room. The nurse at the station gives me a little lift of the hand. Go. I squeeze the detective's photos until the edge is cut. Let's go. The police tape flutters like a warning around the front steps. Inside, the living room has been sketched into evidence. Flags of numbered markers, tangles of string, rulers posed against stains. Forensics has left chalk smudges of their passing. The coffee mug is now an exhibit, its swords nested in a plastic tray. I stand on the threshold until memory stops screaming. His office, I tell the detective. He kept his life in folders. We move upstairs. Son fights through the blinds and loses. He pulls on gloves and tugs open the file cabinet. Folders whisper as they slide. Taxes, school forms, warranties. Then insurance. A blue folder, heavy as if responsibility adds weight. The young officer, the one who pulled the bed, hands it over, and the detective reads faster the further he goes. He taps the page with his forefinger and exhales through his nose like a man who just found a fuse. Beneficiary, he says. He turns the sheet so I can see. Jessica's name blocks the line in a confident font. I feel the world tilt, just by a hair. I whisper. He never changed it, Daniel. He meant to. I know he did. He was busy. The detective doesn't offer comfort. He offers the only thing he has, the outline of motive. If his death looks accidental, she collects, with interest. The words loosen something inside me that isn't grief. It's colder, simpler, rage that has somewhere to go. I put my palm on the desk where Daniel's hand must have rested, and for a second, the wood is warm with him. Then we make it doesn't look accidental, I say. My voice surprises me. It's made of wire. He slips the folder into an evidence bag. We will. We come back down the stairs, and the house pulls its tricks. Angles we've already seen look new and mean. The detective crouches by the baseboard near the sofa, where dust tells on whoever tried to clean. He points to a smear too high to be clumsy and too wide to be nothing. She didn't know about luminol, he says. Blood talks when you turn the lights off. The doorbell rings, not the house's, outside. We step onto the porch. Mrs. Rose from across the street stands there in a cardigan the color of old lemons, a cane shaking more from nerves than age. I heard you were here, she confesses without greeting, eyes darting between the tape and me. I should have, she swallows. That night, the storm. There were noises, shouting. I heard a crash. I was going to call, but a quick, guilty look at the tape. I'm alone at night. I got scared. I take her papery hand. You're here now. I turn to the detective. Please. He's already opening his notebook. She tells him, words tumbling, a truck's growl, a man's voice, a woman crying or laughing. The storm made it hard to know. He thinks her like truth is currency and she's just paid a debt. As she totters away, the detective's phone chirps. He listens, jaw working. Landlady at Jessica's old place is in. Says Jessica cleared out 2 weeks ago. Big suitcase, night ride. Of course she did. Of course. He slides the phone away. You don't have to come. I look once more at the coffee spill fossilized into the rug and the Lego ship still on the shelf in Matthew's room at the top of the stairs. Yes, I do. The building is a long cough of brick in an alley that smells like damp cardboard and diesel. The landlady sits on a folding chair under a slumping awning, cigarette poised like punctuation. Jessica, she says, accepting the detective's badge without surprise. Pretty, trash taste in men, mad at the world. She dumped the keys. Left in a hurry. 2 weeks. Night. She pays late, but she pays. This time she paid early. That's how I knew something was wrong. Did she say where she was going? He asks. The landlady snorts. People like that never say. They just drag. She jerks her chin toward the stairs. Apartment's empty. Smells like cheap perfume and instant soup. We climb. The door opens to a room that looks evacuated rather than vacated. Desk rectangles where furniture used to be, a single spoon on the counter with a noodle fossilizing to it, a drawer with envelopes and nothing in them. In the bedroom, the closet yawns, with 2-wire hangers left like ribs. I pull open the nightstand. There's a lottery ticket and a lipstick worn flat. In the trash, a torn page with a phone number and a first name written too hard. Raone. I hold it up. Loan, the detective says, rolling it in his mouth. Or a name, or both. He bags it. We step back into the hall, and that's when the man with the scarred face appears at the stairwell, taking us in with quick ferret eyes and already choosing the exit. Looking for Jessica? The detective asks, like he's asking for the time. The man juts his chin. Who's asking? Police. The badge flashes again. The man's shoulders lift lower by an inch. The young officer moves, easy, to block the stairs. The man licks his lips. His voice is gravel dragged behind a truck. She owes a lot of people, lady. Owes me too. Name, the detective says. Raone. He smirks without humor. She promised she'd square in 2 weeks. Promises are cheap. 2 weeks. The calendar inside me stamps the days in red. Where is she? I ask. He looks at me like he's deciding how much to charge for truth. If I knew, you think I'd be walking around with my hands empty? She ran. Only thing I know, she was bragging she'd be flush soon. Big payout. Like magic. The detective's gaze flicks to me and back. Insurance, he says. Not to the man, but to the air. We take Rayone's number and leave him in the hall, his smirk already curdling into worry because he's just understood he's a breadcrumb. Outside, the detective's phone hums again. He listens, eyes on the building's soot-streaked cornice. Traffic cams, he says when he hangs up. That truck pops at 2 intersections, then disappears into the industrial belt. We're checking cold storage sites, warehouses, the places nobody looks at when it's daylight. He doesn't say the rest out loud. Where bodies get lost and found. Back at the hospital, Matthew is awake. His eyes track me as I enter. It's small and huge. I sit on the edge of the bed and take his hand. His fingers are warmer. The IV pumps slow strength back into him in steady drops. I went to your house, I tell him, because children can smell when you lie. We're helping the police. He swallows. Did you see my tower? His voice is a scraped match. I close my eyes and see it perfectly. Blues and reds, a ridiculous little flag, the base plate bowed with effort. It's the prettiest, just like your dad said. He nods once, and moisture shines at the corner of his eye. The nurse pretends not to notice at the chart. The phone in my bag vibrates like a trapped insect. I answer with my free hand. Mrs. Helen? The detective's voice has lost the soft edges. We need you to come in, and you should prepare yourself. Prepare, I repeat. The room skews. Matthew feels me go cold and squeezes my hand as if to anchor me to the mattress. The detective continues, each word set down carefully. We found an abandoned cold storage facility, one our lone boys use as a clubhouse. There's evidence the truck was there. We're sending a unit now. I don't breathe until I hang up. Then I do the thing mothers do when the world is kicking down a door. I smooth Matthew's hair and fix his blanket, and speak like routine can turn back weather. I'll be right back, I tell him. The night's nurse is staying with you, and I'm putting your bear in charge until I return. He looks at the bear, then at me. Don't go alone. I won't, I say. I'm taking the police with me. It earns me the ghost of a smile. It's the bravest thing I've seen. The precinct smells like coffee gone sour and paper that's been handled too much. The detective meets me in a briefing room with a wall of maps cluttered with pins. A tech tops a keyboard and a grainy camera feed fills the monitor. A truck under a failing sodium lamp. A tarp that flaps once in a gust, hinting at something rigid beneath. A second feed snaps up. A warehouse's camera, the kind that only records because someone forgot to unplug it. The same truck, 2 figures dragging a long, heavy thing, blanket wrapped. From the bed drew a roll-up door painted the color of old blood. I grip the back of a chair until my knuckles go pale. That's him, I say, and my voice refuses to break. The detective doesn't answer. He touches the radio on his shoulder.
Units are there, he says to it. Go. On screen, the door in the warehouse video is just a painted rectangle from weeks ago, but in my mind, it's opening now. In my mind, I can smell cold metal and ammonia and the stubborn sweet iron of blood that never quite leaves. The radio crackles. Static bites. Then a voice, breathless and careful. We have a find. The room holds itself very still. Say again, the detective says, his tone a flat road. A mail, blanket, extensive trauma, cold storage. We're securing the scene. Silence eats the edges of the room. On the monitor, the frozen truck doesn't move. The tarp doesn't lift. But somewhere else, men in uniforms are standing in a refrigerator with their hats off. I don't sit. I don't speak. I reach for the chair and miss. The detective steadies me with a palm between my shoulders, human and ordinary. And in that ordinariness, there is mercy. Mrs. Helen, he says, softer than he has ever said my name, I'll take you to the morgue. When you're ready. I am not ready. Readiness is a word for grocery lists and dentist appointments. Take me now, I say, because there are things you only learn by walking into them. On the way out, I pass a bulletin board plastered with faces the city has misplaced. A girl with a septum ring, a man whose smile is too big for his eyes. I want to tear the staples out and give all their mothers a chair and a cup and tell them exactly how to breathe. Instead, I follow the detective into a corridor that smells colder the deeper we go. He pushes open a heavy door. It swallows us whole. The room behind is white and stainless and indifferent. A sheet waits on a gurney. It is always a sheet, always white. The young officer from the bedroom stands beside it with his jaw clenched like a fist. The detective looks at me, asks with his eyes if I want him to do it. I shake my head. My hands rise unsteadily and fold the edge back. Daniel looks like a photograph that's been left in the sun too long. But he is my boy. He is my boy. I put my fingertips to his cheek. It's colder than anything has a right to be. Hi, I say, because mothers introduce themselves to the dead too.
Morning cracks open on a city that hasn't slept. The detective's car smells like wool and old coffee. His hands on the wheel are steady in that way people learn after they've held bad news too often. I ride without speaking, counting traffic lights to keep my lungs moving. At the precinct, a room with mirrored glass waits like a held breath. The young officer, the one from the bed, meets us there with a file against his chest, knuckles pale. We picked up the mail, he says, the one from the video, brought him in on an unrelated warrant. He's talking. We step behind the glass. Inside, the scarred man sits hunched in a metal chair, wrists cuffed to a loop. His eyes are red as raw meat. His bravado has been peeled back, leaving only sweat and the twitch of a foot that wants to run without the body. A recorder blinks on the table, like a heartbeat someone forgot to silence. The detective enters the room and sets down a plastic bag. Inside, a woman's jacket, cheap and pale, a blanket stiff with brown ghosts that don't need labels. He lays photos beside them. Truck under a lamp, the warehouse door, the long, wrapped shape. Then leans on his palms and looks the man in the face. Your name is Raon, he says. You walked into this story. I'm giving you one chance to walk out with all your years. Silence stretches. Raon's tongue wets a split lip. I don't know anything, he mutters, eyes stuck to the corner. The detective taps a finger on the blanket. You know this, he says. Tap. And this. Photo. Tap. And her. He flips his still. Jessica, lifted from an old traffic cam, chin raised, hair frizzing in rain. She will not save you. Roan cracks first in the shoulders, then the jaw slackens. A breath hitches. I didn't kill nobody, he says, voice shaking in a room that records truth and lies without preference. He called me, said she needed help with the problem. I figured it was the couch, a TV, something heavy. Not... His hands lift, shackled, and fall, useless. I didn't know till I stepped inside and saw all that. The fight? The detective says. How did it start? He stares at the photos until his eyes water. They were shouting, money, always money. He told her to get out. She wouldn't. The big table. He hit it when I shoved him. A flinch of memory. He went down, hard. After that, she panicked. Me too. She said if we called anyone, we'd both go away forever.
Said there was a way to fix it. He nods at the photo of the truck. We wrapped him. I drove. She gave orders. The warehouse? The detective prompts. Place we use when collections get complicated. He swallows. I didn't want to, but it was done already. You get me? You don't unspill that. We put him in the cold. She was crying. Then she stopped, like a switch. Said she had to handle paperwork. Then we'd never talk about it again. Paperwork, the detective repeats as if tasting a rotten word. Insurance. Yeah. Rollins says, and now he looks small, like a boy trapped in a man's ruin. He's hiding. Empty house near the river. Old foreclosure. Says it's temporary, while the money clears. The room outside exhales. The radio on the detective's shoulder crackles to life, as if with hunger. Get me an address, he says, and the hallway erupts in motion.
At the precinct, the hall smells like rain, carried in on boots. They bring her down the corridor between two officers. Jessica's wrists are cuffed in front, and she keeps touching her hair, as if smoothing it could smooth reality back into something she recognizes. We meet eyes as she passes. A muscle ticks in her cheek. She looks away first. Don't, she mutters. Not to me. Maybe to the walls. You don't know. But I do know. I know more than I ever wanted. They put her in interview 2. Through the mirrored glass, she paces like a cat in a too small cage, then sits, then stands, a metronome of panic. When the detective enters, she smiles with only her teeth. Lawyer, she says. You'll have one, he answers. Before that, we're just talking. He places the evidence on the table like a terrible still life. Jacket, blanket, the photo of the truck, the policy with her name on the line. We know, Jessica. We know enough. She stares at the policy, and I see it, the moment when a plan stops being an idea and becomes the very thing that drowns you. She tries scoffing first, then crying, then anger, hot and useless. He hurt me, she says, voice rising. You think he didn't? He took my son. He protected your son, the detective cuts in, voice sharp. From you. Her palm slaps the metal table, the ring she still wears making a small, ridiculous ping. I didn't mean to kill him, she says. It was an accident. He fell. That's not murder. You hid the body, the detective says, each word placed like a brick. You staged an accident. You pursued an insurance payout. That is intent after the fact, and the law knows what to call it. She folds in on herself, spine curling like paper over flame. Then, in a soft voice aimed at the floor, she tries one last door. I'm Matthew's mother. I don't realize I've moved until my hand is on the glass. The urge to go in there and tell her what a mother is, what it is not, rattles my bones. I think of Matthew under the bed, clutching an empty bottle like a lifeline. I think of Daniel and the cold room and the way the sheet cracked like ice when I folded it back. Mother, I want to spit, is the person who jumps between the blow and the child, even if the blow is the rest of her life. Inside, the detective doesn't blink. You are also the reason a boy stopped speaking, he says. Not unkind, not kind. We'll be taking your statement now. The recorder blinks. The pen moves. Her words pile into a wall she can't climb. The booking is vast and endless. Fingerprints, photographs, inventory of a purse full of useless things, receipts, lipstick, a key to nowhere. They lead her down a hall that smells of bleach and despair. She turns her head just enough to aim her voice at the air behind her. I never meant it, she says. He should have just given me the money. It would have all been fine. A laugh escapes me, silent, ugly, the kind grief forces through a throat when it runs out of room for tears. Money! As if it is the weather and not a choice. As if it is the spine of a life. The detective appears at my shoulder. He has the decency to look like a man, not a badge. He says, we'll file charges for murder, fraud, concealment of a body. We have enough. We'll talk to the DA this afternoon. It will move quickly. Quickly, I echo. There is no quickly that undoes a shoot. He hesitates. Do you want to give a statement for the record? About Daniel? About what kind of father he was? The question knocks the wind out of me warmer than any heater. Yes, I say. I want them to know who they took. He ushers me into a small room with a straight-back chair and a camera that looks like a big blinking eye. A clerk says the date and the time and my name. The red LED winks on. I face the lens, and for a second, the blank glass turns into every face that ever loved my son. Daniel was the kindest man I have ever known.
When he was 7, he found a bird with a broken wing and built it a shoebox hospital with little popsicle sticks for splints. When he grew, he didn't lose that part. He brought me corn cake every time he visited because it made me happy, and he liked seeing me happy. He loved his boy. He loved him like it was the point of waking up. I could go on for hours. I stop after the shape of a minute because if I don't, I'll drown on camera. The clerk nods. The little red light dies. Outside, through a narrow window, the day has turned that thin winter blue. Somewhere in this city, Matthew is picking at a piece of toast, and a nurse is telling him a joke she's told 100 children. Somewhere else, Jessica is sitting on a bench, with her wrists bruised where the cuffs sat, learning what walls feel like when they don't move. I find the detective again. "What happens now?" I ask. "Arraignment," he says, "then trial." "And justice," I say. The word is a stone I roll in my mouth to smooth it. He nods. "Yes." I leave the precinct with a paper bag of Matthew's clothes, sealed and labeled, evidence of a life that should have been ordinary. On the steps, wind claws at my coat. I pause, and for the first time since the house, I let the anger in my chest stand next to the grief without fighting it. They fit together, ugly and perfect, like two hands that learned each other a long time ago. There is the court's justice, the kind that stamps and files and announces itself in rooms with flags. And there is the other kind, the small daily justice of choosing to build a boy back from a dark place. One is loud, one is work. I can do both. I pull my scarf tighter and start walking toward the bus that will take me to my grandson. The courthouse smells like old paper and winter coats. Reporters hover near the metal detector, their breath making small ghosts. I keep my palm on Matthew's back as we move through the line. He wears a blue sweater the color of field sky. His hand finds my coat and doesn't let go. Inside, the courtroom is a theater without applause. Polished wood, a flag, a clock that refuses to hurry. The prosecutor arranges folders with the care of a surgeon. The defense lawyer whispers into Jessica's ear. She nods like a person who understands the words and does not accept their meanings. We sit in the front row. Matthew's legs don't reach the floor. He swings them once, then tucks his heels under the bench as if to make himself smaller. I touch his hair. "We tell the truth," I say. "That's our whole job." He nods, eyes on the table where the blue insurance folder lies like a quiet bomb. The bailiff calls rise. We rise. The judge enters, a woman with iron gray hair and a gaze that holds the room steady. She looks at each table, then at us. "Be seated," she says, voice even as a level. Opening statements are measured blades. The prosecutor stands with his hands folded at his waist, a teacher before a hard lesson. You will hear about debt, about chance and choice. You will see how a woman who once held a baby in her arms chose money over the man who loved that child. He turns his head slightly toward us, not enough to be a performance, just enough to allow our presence to weigh the air. You will hear from a boy. The defense lawyer rises like a man getting out of a cold river. "This was an accident," he says, gentle, almost pleading. "A fall, panic, poor decisions after fear. We ask you to see a mother who made mistakes, not a monster." The word mother tries to plant itself and dies at my feet. Evidence arrives with the rhythm of footsteps. Photos, the living room disarray, the blood that sang for luminol, the truck under a sick street lamp, the warehouse door, always that door, the blue folder with Daniel's signature, the policy line with her name. The detective takes the stand. He sits straight, tie knotted too tight. The prosecutor walks him through the night like a map. He explains the videos, the stains, the lie that tried to be an accident. When the defense rises to cross, he asks about certainty. "You aren't there, were you?" he says. "No," the detective answers, calm, but the truth left fingerprints. Then Rayon, shackled at the ankles, escorted by 2 deputies who smell like tobacco and patience. He avoids the jury's eyes. He avoids mine. He looks at the microphone like it will bite him. The prosecutor guides him with simple questions. He tells the story. The call, the shove, the blanket, the cold room. His voice drags, thick with guilt too late to be useful. "Who drove?" the prosecutor asks. "I did." "Who told you where to go?" "She did." She said she had a plan. What was the plan? Wait 2 weeks, file for the insurance, disappear. On cross, the defense tries to pry him open. You're facing your own charges, the lawyer says. You want a deal. I want to sleep, Rayon mutters. The courtroom shifts, a collective exhale none of us meant to share. The doctor from the morgue testifies. He uses words soft around hard facts. Subdural hematoma, forceful impact, time of death. His voice is clean, clinical. I love him a little for that. He is the only one who can teach the room how Daniel left without making it an opinion. When the prosecutor calls me, the bench creaks under my knees. I stand, hand raised, bow to tell the truth, and sit, bones suddenly too present in my skin. Please tell the jury about Daniel, he says. I tell them about small things, because small things are what make a person. The bird with the popsicle stick splint, the way he shared half his sandwich with a kid at school who forgot his lunch, the corn cake he carried across the city on a bus because his mother likes it warm. I watch faces soften and set, like clay thrown on a wheel by steady hands. The defense asks if I ever saw Jessica be kind. I think of a young woman blushing at a burnt onion. I think of a court hallway years ago where she cried into a tissue for 5 seconds and then demanded paperwork. Once, a long time ago. Then the prosecutor calls Matthew.
The judge has already ruled no cameras while he speaks. The bailiff opens a side door and Matthew steps through it, small and straight-spined, his bear left behind on the bench like a promise. He climbs the witness chair as if it might decide not to hold him. The prosecutor kneels so his eyes are level. Do you know the difference between a truth and a lie? He asks. Matthew nods. A lie feels heavy, he says. It makes your stomach hurt. The prosecutor swallows, then keeps his voice soft. Tell us what you can. Only what you can. Matthew's eyes find me. I nod. He begins. It was raining, he says. The doorbell rang a lot. Dad told me to hide. I went under the bed. He breathes in, out, counts on his fingers. Mom came with a tall man. She asked where I was. Dad said I was at Grandma's. That was a lie, but a good one. A smile almost reaches my mouth and stops. They yelled, he continues. The man pushed my dad. He fell. He hit the table. He didn't move. There was red. His hands twist, thumbs rubbing, a small engine of fear. What did you do? The prosecutor asks, voice thinner now. I stayed. Dad told me not to come out, so I did what he said. The courtroom holds its breath. Somewhere behind us, a chair creaks. The judge leans forward just a fraction, like a mother at a crib. Do you see the person you came with that night? The prosecutor asks, quietly. Matthew looks at the defense table. He looks at Jessica. For a heartbeat, she almost smiles. He points. That's my mom, he says. The smile dies without being born. The defense doesn't cross. He shakes his head, eyes shining, and says, no questions. I like him for 5 seconds. The judge thanks Matthew. The bailiff leads him back through the side door to a hallway where a therapist waits with stickers and a gentle voice. When he passes our bench, he looks at me. I hold my hand up like a wall, and he presses his palm to mine as he walks, a high five that pretends it isn't holding us together. Closing arguments. The prosecutor's voice gains steel. He stacks the days like bricks. The plan, the shove, the warehouse, the policy. You cannot unspill blood by hiding it. You cannot call money love. The defense asks for mercy. He repeats the word accident until it thins. He mentions panic, fear, bad choices strung together like beads. He does not once say the word sorry. The jury files out like a slow river. We wait. Waiting is a sport you learn at hospitals and courthouses. I count breaths. I count light fixtures. I count the ways you can want something and dread it at the same time. They come back in less than 3 hours. I stand so quickly the bench scrapes my calf. On the charge of first-degree murder, the foreperson says, voice steady, we find the defendant guilty. Words fall into the room and change its temperature. On fraud, on concealment. Guilty, guilty. The syllables stack and do not topple. Jessica breaks in the smallest ways. Jaw loosens, shoulders sag, eyes close. For a moment, she is only a person who ran out of stories to tell herself. Then they put the cuffs back on and they remember anger. She looks at me as they turn her toward the door. "You took him from me," she says. Quiet, venom diluted by defeat. I shake my head. "You took him from all of us." Sentencing comes a week later, formal as a funeral. Life without parole. The judge says the words like a bell tolling the exact number of rings required. The accomplice gets 20 years. His eyes shine wet and he nods at no one. When it's over, the courtroom empties in layers. Reporters peel away first. Strangers who came for the spectacle and stayed for the story drift out talking soft. The detective finds me. "It's done," he says. "No," I answer. "It's started." He understands. Justice is a door. Beyond it is a house you still have to clean, a fridge you still have to fill, a child who still wakes up at 3 a.m. and checks under his bed. At home, my home now, our home, Matthew's room smells like lemon oil and new sheets. We set the Lego tower on his dresser, a reconstructed city with a flag that doesn't know it has been at half-mast. Some nights he sleeps through. Some nights he sits up shaking, eyes wide at the dark. On those nights, I go to him with a glass of water and a story about his father that has dirt under its nails and laughter in the wrong places. We visit the cemetery on a day the sky remembers how to be blue. Matthew sets a small blue brick at the headstone, snaps it into the grass like you can anchor a person. He leans into my side. "Do you think Dad can see us?" he asks. "I think he never stopped," I say. Back home, I stand at the kitchen counter, peel an apple, and catch myself cutting the way Daniel did. Slow arcs, one ribbon of skin falling into a spiral on the board. The sight steals my breath, then gives it back. Grief is like that, a thief who sometimes returns what it took, softer at the edges. At night, when the house settles and the streetlight sketches its square on the floor, I sit at the table with a stack of forms. Guardianship, therapy intake, school transfer. The pen feels heavy and right. Justice in court stamped a seal. Justice at home will be ink and sandwiches and the slow, stubborn work of teaching a boy that the world can be safe again. From the hallway, a small voice. "Grandma?" I go. He's standing in his doorway with his bear, hair a sleep crown. "Can I sleep in your room?" he asks, embarrassment already reddening his ears. "Yes," I say, like it was always the plan. I pull back my covers. He climbs in, small and solid. He does not let go of my hand when sleep takes him. I do not ask him to. In the dark, I look at the ceiling and say my son's name under my breath, not like a prayer, not like a curse, like a truth with a room in it. Tomorrow, I will call to school. Tomorrow, I will meet with the therapist again. Tomorrow, I will cook corn cake and eat a square with Matthew at the table and tell him the story of the bird with the popsicle stick splint and the boy who made it fly. Tonight, I count his breaths and promise both of us that the silence this verdict left will be filled with the sound of Lego bricks tipping out of a box, with pencil on homework, with laughter that returns shyly and then decides to stay. The therapist's office smells like citrus and new books. A sun lamp throws a square of warm light over a rug with roads printed on it, the kind kids drive toy cars across. Matthew sits cross-legged, bare in his lap, eyes on the little basket of Legos the therapist keeps for hands that talk better than mouths. "Want to build while we chat?" she asks. Her voice has no edges. He nods. I take the chair by the window and fold my hands to keep from coaching his every breath. The therapist, Dr. Patel, sits on the floor with him, not facing, shoulder to shoulder, like two people watching the same horizon. "What are we making?" she asks. "A tower," he says. "What happens if it falls?" He thinks. "We build it again," he says, and the words land in the room like something more than architecture. After, in the hallway, she gives me a list on pale paper, grounding exercises, night routine, a note about trauma echo that reads like she wrote it just for us. "He's coming back, Mrs. Helen," she says, hand warm on my sleeve. "It will be slow, but he's coming." That night, he sleeps in his own room and keeps sleeping. I sit on the hallway rug with my back against his door and cry into a dish towel so I don't wake him. On a Tuesday that forgets to be dramatic, I find an envelope wedged under our apartment door. No stamp, my name written in a hand that leans too hard on its letters. I open it with a butter knife at the kitchen counter. A single sheet slides out. Printed, not handwritten. You got paid. Pay what she owes, or we collect something else. A phone number. No name. The words don't shake. The coffee mug in my hand does. I set it down before it breaks. I call the detective. He picks up on the second ring. Don't answer it, he says, before I finish. Don't call. We'll set a trace. Keep the envelope. We're coming. He comes himself, without uniform. The young officer from the bed comes too. They read the note under the lamp like men reading a weather report you can drown in. Insurance didn't pay a cent, I say. They know that. They don't know anything they don't want, the detective says. They know leverage. They think grief equals cash. Are we safe? My voice comes out smaller than I meant. Matthew in the living room is lining up toy cars on the rug road, making no sounds, lips counting. We'll make it safer, he says. We'll put a patrol by the building. We'll wire your phone. If they want to meet, we'll be there first. He tucks the note into a plastic sleeve, clicks it shut. You don't owe them anything, he adds, and for a second, he isn't an officer, he's an older brother, tired and stubborn. When he leaves, I lock the door and check it twice, then a third time because habit is a spell. I teach Matthew a new game before bed where we name 5 blue things, 4 quiet things, 3 soft things. He whispers pillow for soft and presses his cheek to it like proof. At 2 a.m, the phone rings. Unknown number. I let it buzz to the end. It rings again. Again. The 4th time, I answer and put it on speaker, hold it low between us at the kitchen table. The therapist sits beside me, out of sight of the window, his own phone on the table, thumb hovering. Hello? I say, and my voice sounds like my mother's did when she was forced to be brave. A man laughs, the kind that doesn't find jokes funny. Finally, he says. Jessica said insurance money clears for family, your family. Square the debt, old lady, or we don't have to teach you about interest. I said Jessica's in prison, I say. Insurance doesn't pay murder. You know that. The note on the table already was marked. I know you're going to meet me with 20 grand tomorrow, or I start taking apart the thing you love most, he says, voice flattening into metal. Park off Halstead, under the overpass, noon. The detective's pen has already scrolled the time and place. He tilts the pad so I can see it. His mouth is a line. I don't have that money, I say. Find it, the man says, and hangs up. The dial tone is obscene. I turn to the detective. I'm not giving them anything. You're not, he says. You're giving me a location. Under the overpass, noon turns the air into a hard glare. Traffic hums above like a nest of bees. I wait in my car with the engine off, hands on the wheel. The detective is not in sight, which means he's everywhere. A dented sedan pulls in nose to nose. A man steps out, the leather jacket, the scars, but not Rion, bigger. His eyes skimmed a lot, and then me, calculating. Where's the money, he says, like a statement. He stands just outside my door, too close, smelling like old cigarettes and impatience. In the trunk, I lie, let in the sentence hang small and plain. He gestures with 2 fingers. Move. I pop the trunk. He walks back, posture gaining confidence. I push the door open, step out slow, and stay on my side of the car. He lifts the trunk lid with a grunt. A squad car sirens just once, that single bark that says look up. Another car boxes him in from behind, 2 more from the flanks. The detective appears on my right like he grew there, gun low, voice not needing to shout. Police, hands where I can see them. For a second, he thinks he's faster than consequence. He isn't. It's over in a seam of time. Hands wrenched, cuffs on, a string of words about lawyers and mistakes that no one believes, not even the mouth saying them. The detective tips the trunk lid down and gives me a sideways look. You lied pretty well, he says. I'm motivated, I answer. My legs start to shake now that they are permitted. He steadies my elbow without making a fuss of it. They find another note in his pocket, same font, same threat. They'll pull his phone, talk to his boss, climb the vine to the sour fruit. They tell me none of that will be my business. Good. I have a different house to keep. Jessica writes from prison. The envelope arrives with its state seal and its rules typed on the back. I stare at it for a full minute before slicing the edge. One sheet. Her hand this time, angled, fast, like a person running downhill. Helen, you won. Are you happy? I made mistakes. I was sick. If I get help, if I show I'm better, can you bring Matthew to see me? He's my son. He should know I didn't mean to ruin everything. I just wanted a life. J. I carry the letter to the sink and run water over it until the paper gives up. The pulp clogs the drain and I fish it out, pressing it in my palm until it's just wet nonsense. I don't answer. Some doors stay closed because that's how a house stands. Instead, I write to the court, a formal letter with clean margins. I ask for a no-contact order. I ask for our names to stay off public records. I ask for space for a boy to grow without a shadow crossing his room. The clerk stamps it and slides it back with a sympathetic look that is not pity. I like her for knowing the difference. Spring loosens winter's jaws one day at a time. On a Saturday, Matthew laces his shoes without help and announces he is ready for the park. We take a kite we bought with the grocery store points, red, ridiculous, with a tail like a comet. In the field, the wind lifts, and the kite fights, then finds its way. Matthew runs, cheeks pink, mouth open with real laughter, not the careful kind. The sound reaches parts of me the sun couldn't. Look, Grandma, he shouts, letting the string play through his fingers. The kite climbs, wobbles, and steadies, a bright defiance against the blue. He stops running and stands with his head tipped back, the line a clean angle from his small fist to the slice of color owning sky. Can I let it go? He asks, testing me, testing himself. Hold it, I say, but feel how strong you are. He grins and holds. On the way home, we stop at the cemetery with a thermos of sweet tea and 2 slices of corn cake wrapped in wax paper. We sit on the grass like people visiting a friend in a small apartment. Matthew cleans the headstone with the corner of his sleeve, like he's polishing a window. He sets a new Lego flag at the base. I had a dream, he says, looking at the stone, not me. Dad said I could sleep with the light off now. He said I can build a taller tower if I add more pieces at the bottom. What did you say? I ask. I said okay, he says, like a promise. On the bus home, he leans his head on my arm and falls asleep to the rhythm of city and brakes. I watch the window and see our reflections layered over everything. The street, the stores, our faces. We look like people who might be okay. That night, I take the bottle from the top shelf of the pantry, the empty water bottle Matthew brought from under the bed, and set it on the kitchen table. It's cleaned now, label peeled, just clear plastic catching light. He finds it there after his bath, stops in the doorway, and stares at it like an animal you only approach when the woods feel safe. I don't need it anymore, he says after a long time. Would you like to keep it? I ask. Or would you like to throw it away? He thinks with his whole face. Can we make it into something else? We cut it short and press it over a jar of soil. He pokes a finger down and drops 2 radish seeds in, covers them with earth and pats it flat. We water it, the plastic bell of the bottle holding the moisture like a small greenhouse. What should we name it? I ask. Daniel, he says, and smiles, brave and open, because he takes care of things. We set it on the windowsill. In a week, 2 green threads push up. In 2, small leaves. Matthew measures them with his thumb and forefinger each morning, like a little scientist with a private miracle. When we're done, I sit at the table and write one more letter, this one to a list I made on the back of receipts over a long winter. The insurance company, the landlord at Daniel's place, the school counselor, the church group that brings dinners on Tuesdays, and the detective who gave me his number and meant it. I write thank you, but not the thin kind, the thick kind, with edges and weight. In our building, someone starts practicing piano at dinner time. The same piece every night, wrong notes giving way to right ones, hands learning what they mean,
I stand at the stove with corn sweet in a pan and listen to the mistakes turn into music, the way a house learns to be a home again, one sound at a time. Later, in the dark, Matthew sleeps in his bed, and doesn't stir when a siren sings in the distance and fades. I step onto the small balcony with the blanket around my shoulders and the city hanging its lights like stars it can control. I say my son's name to the night, not to ask for anything, to set it gently where it belongs. Tomorrow there will be laundry and school forms and therapy and the greenhouse bottle on the sill. Tomorrow I will walk past the precinct and leave a paper cup of decent coffee at the front desk without a note. Tomorrow I will show Matthew where the toolbox lives and let him turn the screws on the loose kitchen chair, the way his father used to, slow and certain, lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, the world holding where you ask it to, because you learned how. Tonight the house stays quiet. The door is locked. The tower on the dresser leans and doesn't fall. We are still here, and in the morning we will be more.